welcome to Season 4 of SkillCast, the podcast by the London Organisation of Skills Development. My name is Nurbanu and I'm your host. I couldn't be more excited to embark on this new season with you. In Season 4, we're pushing boundaries and exploring the forefront of skills development. We'll discuss emerging trends, innovative practices, and the evolving landscape of professional growth. Our lineup features thought leaders, industry pioneers, and change makers who are redefining what's possible. Whether you're aiming to future-proof your career, ignite your passion, or simply enjoy insightful conversations, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome, Dr. Angelica.
Nice to see you. I love to visit with you and happy to be in my wonderful Cambridge place. Feels like home to me.
Really? So where's home for you?
I actually live in Canada. I'm a Canadian citizen, but spent 4 years in London, and it has always been my dream to speak and to teach at Cambridge or to be affiliated with Cambridge University.
Oh, wow. So what were you doing in London for 4 years?
Continuing research, but really not. At the time that I came, I was in deep grief from death of my spouse.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. So
based in the UK or back?
He was based in the UK, yeah, and I was here. I was in Canada. So anyway, we'll proceed forward. Life has changed a lot since then.
Oh wow! So what were you doing before you moved to the UK?
Well, I was in my early career, 10 years as a teacher, and then I was a single mom. So I raised all 4 of my children by myself and had to figure out a way to put them through university. That was very important to me. And so I went into real estate, became hugely successful doing that. And I sold real estate for 28 years and then moved to California, not to do more studies or more research, but I had a traumatic brain injury in California where I almost lost my vision. And that guided me to this career of being an alternative doctor, which I never thought would happen. And so I did a master's degree in trauma release and then a PhD as a holistic doctor of integrative medicine. And what came out of that was a course that I created on the cranial nerves. And right now, here we are now, more than 10 years later, where the cranial nerves and the vagus nerve are a big deal. Well, I discovered that in 2013 and sent my findings to a mentor that I had studied with on brain addiction and other things in 1995. And his name is Dr. Jay Holder. And Dr. Jay Holder and Dr. Kenneth Blum discovered together the genetic codes for addiction. And I sent my course to Jay Holder as a friend, and he said, I'll ring you back in a couple of weeks. I'm just going to Japan now. And 2 days later, the phone rang, and I thought, oh my goodness, I've either done something really bad or something really good. And Jay said, you don't know what you've stumbled upon. You need to study with us because then you'll figure it out. And I went, Jay, you have an addiction college. What do I want with that? That's not my thing. What do I want with that? No, just come. And so I trusted him and went to study with them. And after 3 or 4 courses, realized, just a minute, depression was quadrupling every quarter. This is in 2013. People were where I lived, which was in Irvine, near Camp Pendleton. The veterans were committing suicide, 20 suicides a week. There were students, young people in their 20s, who were dying of so-called drug overdose. And so this became just so huge to my soul and so huge. And I kept saying to Jay, look, you've had this hospital for 25 years. You've had this college for 25 years. Why hasn't anyone come across an end to this so that we can, for the rest of the world, someone can just say, I had addiction and it's over now. I don't have this anymore. Instead of this 25 years of being in this rehab, that rehab, spending millions of dollars on rehabilitation and never achieving it. And he used to just laugh. Oh, go figure it out. Go figure it out. And well, what about meth? Go figure it out. Well, what about cocaine? Go figure it out. And he just kept sending me off to see what I could come up with this. And one day, because I do a lot of yoga, one day I was upside down and I was meditating and focusing so deeply on this. And whew, it was like God gave me the answer. And it was a specific access, which was a common access, but no one had ever used that for addiction before. And so I thought, well, how do I now go into this and prove that this actually works? God gave me an inspiration, but how do I know this is real? And at the time was working a sergeant with at a different church who was doing rehabilitation with cognitive behavior therapy. And in 2013, cognitive behavior therapy was a very new thing. Like now it's kind of finding its way.
Yeah, it's this first line of NHS defense right now.
Right.
Service they give.
Now. But in 2013 was quite nouveau. And at this place where he was a safe house or a sober living house where the incarcerated had to not use drugs. And that was, if someone was, 20 years or more, a drug addict, that was a very, very impossible to ask. So the sheriff thought that I was doing some kind of massage therapy in the back room. And I would say to many of them were veterans, some of them, and there were men and women in the room, and they were incarcerated for meth, cocaine, heroin, alcohol. And I just kept saying, does anyone want to have any alternative methods? No drugs, no scalpel, just alternative methods. And in those days, I did a trauma collapse, and then I had a natural holistic therapy modality, which I used to crack the codes of what is going on in the body holistically. And then I had a light therapy device. And I was just using that, and 3 or 4 sessions later, 5 sessions later, the feedback that came back from these incarcerateds was, I haven't relapsed. I have no cravings. What did you do to my brain? And this became sort of, so I saw over 100 people. It used my own personal finances because I conducted the clinical trial myself. It used over $2 million of my own source money. I self-funded the clinical trial. And at the end, I had 35 people who stayed for 90 days. In those days, it was 90 days. And then 33 of the 35 did not relapse since 2013 to now 2020. Well, it was then 2023. And so this became just such an unusual thing. And one of the incarcerateds had been incarcerated for 28 years, had 5 different incarceration numbers, 40 years meth, cocaine, heroin, 50 years nicotine. And he completely stopped and went back to work and never relapsed. And I have all those videos on the Grace Center for Healing on my YouTube channel. But because this work was holistic, because this work was individual, and because this work was tailored to each individual person, wasn't just a drug that you take or something that somebody hands you, it's been very difficult to see to see acceptance throughout the world. And when I came back to Canada in 2017, my country had just legalized marijuana. Well, that's one addiction that I don't even consider because we don't know what the soil was treated with, what the leaves were treated with, what's after. And in Canada, no, we do not have a fentanyl problem, but sometimes dirty dealers sprinkle fentanyl on marijuana, which is legal, and then you have children that are dying. So as I started to see that, now this is since 2009 that I've been on this journey. And as I started to see that, I began very passionately to discuss adolescent suicides. And I spoke in one of the forums that Global Research Council produced on my research with the adolescent suicides, which are still continuing since after COVID. And it's just my goal to either buy Dr. Holder's university and have it as a joint venture with someone else, or to begin a clinical trial anywhere in the world where we can prove that these already safe, proven techniques work and work permanently. So at present time, I'm the only person who can write a lifetime guarantee of non-relapse after 30 days. Well, in addiction, the common thing is to go to a rehab center for 6 months. And when you get out, 2 days later, the person relapsed. They already know they will relapse, and they sign them up for another 6 months. So with me, it's one fee, rest of your lifetime. If you ever relapse, which can't happen, it's free. And it's free with all serious drugs, alcohol, as well as nicotine.
So tell me a bit more about your therapies. What does it entail of? And you said it's alternative medicine. Like, is it like, how do you know which treatment's right for each person? And what does the therapy entail?
So the basis of the therapy starts with a modality called body talk, which has been in public domain for more than 30 years. And I learned body talk to learn a technique to literally bring my healing back to my eyes. And that was so there are specific protocols, over 200 protocols on one chart. I follow that chart, and it's very, very quick. I can diagnose what's going on with this body, whether it's a serious disease, and exactly where in the body the non-communication is. So body talk is based on disease that is created because of non-communication between either body parts, organs, or endocrines, or something structurally that's not communicating. And so I do body talk first. I do a process for trauma collapse next. And then we see what other modalities need to be added. Does this person need light therapy? Does this person need sound therapy? So the sound therapy I learned from Dr. Holder. And of course, I use my own technique. And it's so all of my work altogether is really based on Hertz frequencies, so on Tesla's discoveries. So the light therapy is 40 Hertz, sound therapy is 30 Hertz. And in the last 7-8 years, what has been revolutionary and really changed so many people's lives has been the inclusion of the essential oils, which are plant-based distilled essential oils from a company called Young Living. And I only discovered like 3 years ago that specific oils that are monoterpenes and sesquiterpenes can literally crack the generational codes of addiction, which Dr. Holder and Dr. Blum could never crack. So some people have these traumas and have these, and they're considered to be family diseases, generational family diseases. And by inhalation of oils or direct application of oils, not ingesting, but definitely changing. So changing the nutritional composition of the body. So when a body is in disease, when a body is healthy, it vibrates at 78 Hertz. When a body is in disease, say a body in cancer, a body in Parkinson's, that body will only vibrate at 40 Hertz. So my method is always to continue to crack the codes on what's going on with this body through the modality called body talk, and then to apply the Hertz frequencies layer upon layer upon layer, and then this body has no choice but to change. And there are different essential oils for different body parts, for different conditions, for all sorts of conditions. So my treatments are not just now, after hundreds and hundreds of patients in all kinds of crisis situations, because people are hesitant to do alternative therapies because they don't think they work. And this is really, really false thinking, because a distilled plant therapy is hundreds of times more potent than a pharmaceutical alternative. However, we desperately need the balance and the communication between Western medicine, which has the MRIs, the fMRIs, the X-rays, to know what has this accomplished, blood tests. And there are people that are in public domain, like Joe Dispenza and Greg Braden, who I used to speak with when I was at California Institute of Human Science in 2013, 2014. So these therapies go back, and all of the therapies that I use go back like decades and decades of years. There's nothing new, but the combination of how I interweave them, because my values when I started this work were no scalpel, no drugs. So how can a person permanently know that after they've seen me for whatever the addiction is, that they will never relapse? I can guarantee it because of the combination of things that I do. So it's sort of like having a house of cards, pulling one card out, and the entire thing collapses. And when the neurons fire together, they wire together, so they can never be the same again.
Amazing. So if people want to learn more about the work you do, how can they reach you?
They can reach me through LinkedIn, through Grace Center for Healing. And I have, so I'm dr.angelica at Grace Center Healing, spelled the American way.com. And I have a UK phone number, so UK based as well as Canada based.
Would you like us to share that?
I'd love to. Yes, absolutely.
We'll definitely share that on YouTube.
Yes, I'd love that. So, and it's always so wonderful to be in the environment that you have created for global scientists. And I'm so incredibly grateful to Dr. Pareen Samani for, I always say I'm internationally famous thanks to this lovely woman. I'm locally invisible.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.